Good morning. Thanks for joining us. Today we're cooking with Jima and Janine, and for today's recipe we're making Super Hero Muffins. For the ingredients to make our Super Hero Muffins, we're going to need 1.5 cups of sugar, we're going to need 2 eggs, we're going to need 1 cup of oil, 3 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. We're also going to need to shred up 1 cup of shredded zucchini, 1 cup of shredded carrot, and 1 cup of shredded apple. What we're going to do is preheat the oven to 350 degrees and get to shredding.
So we have zucchini, carrot, and apple. So the recipe calls for 1 cup of each of those vegetables. So 1 cup of carrot is usually about 2 medium-sized carrots. 1 cup of apple is usually about 2 medium-sized apples. And this is a very large zucchini, so a lot bigger than what we will need for this recipe. However, what you may choose to do is you may want to grate it all, and then aside from 1 cup that we'll be using in this recipe, put the other grated zucchini in a Ziploc bag and pop it in the freezer, and you can use it for your next recipe.
Right.
So we've washed all the vegetables very, very well, because again, we will be eating the skin. The skin on the zucchini is packed with the nutrients. So we want to this is a big zucchini to be grating, but
we use what we have in the garden.
And it splashes everywhere. These are great muffins because they are actually, we call them superhero muffins because they're packed with super hidden powers, because hidden inside the muffin are apples, zucchini, and carrots. And if you're feeding them as a snack to your children, you may be able to hide those vegetables in and they may not even know. And it's nice to have vegetables and fruit in the same dish. 1 cup of carrot there.
1 cup of carrot.
Okay, so, all right.
So
it only took 1 carrot, and then we have a little bit more I'll put in. And the one thing about the zucchini is we do not want to drain it. Zucchini contains a lot of water, so it's very, very hydrating, but that actually adds a lot of the moisture to the muffin, which is a great thing. Okay, I think we should be good there. And just be careful of the fingers.
yes, ma'am, that's a thing.
If you choose to cut the apple in half and take the core out, then that might be an idea, but I just find I just keep rotating the apple around so that I make sure that there's no core going in. As Farah mentioned, one of the ingredients in the muffins is oil. You can actually replace some of the oil in the recipe with mashed banana or applesauce. It's still, again, it will give you a little bit of a different taste, but still adds a lot of moisture, and it's still a great alternative. Okay. All right, we'll get rid of that.
So the tools that we're going to need for today's recipe, we'll need a dry bowl.
There you go.
Our wet bowl, spatula, some spoons, and our measuring devices. So for our dry ingredients, after we have lined our muffin tin, we'll put that over here and ready for when we're ready to fill that. We're going to, in a large bowl, mix together the sugar, eggs, oil, and vanilla. And then in another bowl, we're going to whisk together the flour, salt, baking soda, cinnamon, and nutmeg. We're going to make a well in that with the dry ingredients and then add the wet mixture. So Janine's going to do the wet mixture, the dry mixture, and I'm going to do the wet mixture. We're just using the opposite size bowls for this video.
Okay. So I'm going to add the dry ingredients in this large bowl, because what we're going to be doing is, what we're using today is what we call the muffin method. And the muffin method can be used for any muffins that you're making or any quick breads like banana bread, zucchini bread, date nut bread. It's the same method all the time. So you put all the dry ingredients in one bowl, create a well in the center where you actually then pour in the wet ingredients and add the additional fruits or whatever you're adding, and then mix. The key really with making a great muffin is not to overmix the dry and the wet ingredients. So once we make the well, we'll be using a large spatula and simply taking away the mixture from the side of the bowl, going to the bottom, folding it up over to the top. As little mixing as possible, just enough so that you ensure that the dry ingredients are mixed into the wet ingredients. And this makes sure that you get a really, really moist muffin. It's not a cake batter. It's muffin batter is actually very thick compared to a cake batter, which is actually thin. And that's why you will never use a set of beaters to make a quick bread or muffins. You just simply use a spatula. So we're going to put the dry ingredients, and it seems a little funny in that you're adding sugar into the wet ingredients, but when you're making a muffin, that sugar actually reacts with the eggs and the oil. So it's, even though it's a dry ingredient per se, it's not.
Here we go.
Here we go. All right, so we're going to go 3 cups of flour. Doesn't need to be sifted. The easiest way to actually measure out flour is to take a scoop and then pour it into the cup. Believe it or not, if you put the actual measuring cup into the bag of flour, it actually gives you a different amount of flour than if you actually take a scoop and scoop it into the cup. There you go. 3 cups of flour. And we need 1 teaspoon of salt. Teaspoon of salt. 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Okay. And it's okay if you add a little bit more cinnamon. I like to add a little bit more. It calls for a teaspoon, but never hurts to add a little tiny bit more. And a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. And what the cinnamon and nutmeg do is they just add a little bit of warmth to the recipe. There you go. There you go. So we just whisk the dry ingredients together as such. And we can mix the eggs, sugar and oil together. So we have all the grated fruit here. Nice thing about this recipe is it's a wonderful recipe for additional add-ins if you want. So you can be adding some dried fruit, raisins, dried cranberries, cut up dried apricots. You can add a variety of nuts if you like, so walnuts, cut up almonds, pecans. Lots of options for this versatile recipe. So we're going to create a well in the center of the dry ingredients, just like a little hole. So if you were digging a well, and we're going to add the wet ingredients into that well, making sure that we don't lose any of those wet ingredients. Just use a spatula to get the last. And we're going to mix it. Again, don't overmix, just enough that the flour mixture is incorporated into the wet mixture. So taking it from the bottom and folding it over the top. Starting to take shape. And then what we can do is we can actually then add the fruit. So you see it actually doesn't take that long to make this mixture. The mixture will be thick, and that's okay because once we add the fruit, it will give it some moisture when it starts to cook. So we'll add all this beautiful fruit. And again, just mix that in so that all the dry ingredients are incorporated and the fruit. I did catch a little seed in there, so that'll just add a little bit more protein to the... I don't use a an ice cream scoop or anything to actually scoop the muffins in the pan. I just use 2 large spoons. Fill the muffins only about 2/3 full. You don't want the muffin tins filled right to the top, because what happens is if you fill them right to the top, you end up getting like almost an umbrella. So it's very small bottom and a very high top. So you just want them to be nicely shaped. The less handling of the dough or the batter, the better, because it allows for a nice moist muffin. And again, you could add additional things if you like, such as the dried fruit. I've often added dried cranberries and raisins, and and nuts. Just give them a nice crunch. So this recipe makes 12 to 18 muffins, depending upon the size of the muffin cups. So today we're going to make 12. Oh, it'll probably make a little bit more than 12. So almost ready for the oven. And that's pretty well it. So I think we're going to pop them into the preheated 350 oven, and they cook for 20 to 25 minutes, depending upon what your oven's like. So in they go. So I think it's been about 22 minutes, so let's take a look. Oh, they look beautiful. Take them out, and we'll just place them on the... And again, these are the Super Hero Muffins, and they're loaded with zucchini, carrot, and apple, which again add lots of hydration, lots of vitamins and minerals, added fiber with the addition of the fruit. So it's just a great, great snack. Could be a evening meal or evening dessert. One thing that you might want to do if you're having it for a dessert is maybe put a dollop of icing on the top. Cream cheese icing is delicious on them. And yeah, there you have it.
Super Hero Muffins.